opening with morning city ambiance, footsteps on pavement, horns in the distance, and the slow inhale of a man about to walk into his own building without being recognized. Marcus Ellis didn't look like a CEO that morning. No blazer, no briefcase. Just clean jeans, a dark gray hoodie, and well-worn sneakers. Simple, intentional. He liked to move quietly, to see how people treated him before they knew who he was. It was 7:54 a.m. He stood in front of a tall, glass office tower, the Orion Building, a sleek, newly renovated commercial space downtown. A week ago, his company had closed the deal. Marcus didn't just own one floor. He now owned the entire building, but no one knew that yet. He was early for a walkthrough. No entourage, no media. Just him, because he believed power that's real doesn't have to announce itself. He approached the front entrance, the revolving doors, security desk, badges, monitors, and one man standing too straight behind a small podium. Brian, security guard, late 40s, white polished boots, neatly pressed shirt, and a face that said, "I decide who belongs here." As Marcus stepped forward, Brian raised a hand. "Hey, deliveries use the back entrance." Marcus blinked. "I'm not here for a delivery." Brian looked him over. Hoodie, no badge, no briefcase, then smirked. "Maintenance? No." "Janitorial team? No." "Then who are you here to see?" Marcus kept his tone calm. "I'm just here to check the space. Scheduled walkthrough." Brian narrowed his eyes. "With who?" "Management." "Which company?" Marcus paused, then smiled. "Let's just say, I'm part of the bigger picture." Brian scoffed. "Look, buddy, I don't make the rules. You gotta look the part to come through that door." Marcus tilted his head. "And what part is that?" Brian leaned in. "You know what I mean." There it was, the line not said in, but fully felt. Marcus exhaled, looked past Brian into the lobby, saw the polished floors he now owned, the elevators that answered to his keycard, the front desk, paid for by his company, and still, he wasn't welcome in his own space. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a thin black card, tapped it to the reader beside the gate. Beep. Access granted. The gate slid open. Brian froze. Marcus stepped forward, turned to Brian and said, "Next time don't. Check the clothes, check your bias." Then walked inside. Brian stood silent, watching the man disappear into the building, the one he thought he controlled. He didn't know Marcus's name, didn't know what was coming, but in that moment, he knew he'd made a mistake. Music fades, joining a slow, smooth bass line with quiet, rising piano. The calm before the storm, with eyes wide open, voice over whisper. They judged his clothes and missed the man who bought the building. Opening with the sound of elevator chimes, footsteps echoing in a quiet hallway, and the soft hum of office lights flickering on. Marcus didn't head straight to his office. He walked the building, floor by floor, slow, observant, intentional. He passed a marketing team setting up a morning presentation, a janitor quietly polishing a marble corner, a group of young interns joking near a coffee machine. Nobody recognized him. Nobody stopped him. And for now, that's exactly how he wanted it. Because, before he put his name on anything, he needed to understand the energy inside, how people treated strangers, how they moved when they weren't being watched, and how culture, the real kind, was built. At 9 a.m. sharp, he entered the management suite, a glass door with etched, silver lettering, property operations. Orion Tower inside sat Deborah, building operations manager. She looked up. "Mr. Ellis, you're early." Marcus smiled. "I like to see things before they know I'm watching." They shook hands. Deborah leaned in. "We didn't announce your ownership yet. Want to wait until the team meeting?" Marcus nodded. "Let's give them a moment." Meanwhile, back in the lobby, Brian sat at his station, still replaying what happened, still confused, still defensive. He opened the security database. Searched. Marcus Ellis. Nothing in the daily visitor log. Nothing in the contractor access list. Then he found it. Owner records. Ellis Holdings, LLC building. Orion. Tower executive contact Marcus A. Ellis access level. Full Brian leaned back, mouth dry. He whispered to himself, "No way." Just then the elevator dinged. Marcus stepped out, back in his hoodie. Same jeans, same stride, only this time walking with purpose. Brian stood up fast. "Sir, I didn't realize." Marcus held up a hand. "You did realize something, just not the right thing." Brian froze. Other employees nearby looked up. Marcus leaned in, voice calm, controlled. "You saw my skin. You saw my clothes. And you made a decision." He paused. "But you didn't see the man." Brian tried to speak. "It's policy. No, it's habit." Marcus turned, walked away, leaving the truth to linger behind him like perfume in a quiet lobby. Upstairs, Deborah greeted a room of department heads. "Before we begin, there's someone you need to meet." She turned. Marcus entered, removed his hoodie, put on the blazer he'd been carrying all morning. And in that moment, the room stood still. Gasps, whispers. The man they passed in the hallway, the one security almost kicked out, was now standing in front of them with full authority. Marcus adjusted the mic. "Good morning. I'm Marcus Ellis, new owner of the Orion building. Music builds, low strings rising with pride, wrapped in clarity. The power of dignity walking unannounced, voiceover whisper." He didn't ask to be respected. He let the truth walk in with him. Opening with the soft hum of an office projector, chairs shifting, and the faint thud of hearts dropping all at once. The conference room was full. Building staff, leasing agents, security supervisors, a few execs from corporate tenants. Everyone came expecting a basic briefing on new building management. No one expected Marcus Ellis, especially not Brian, the security guard now standing in the back, trying to disappear into the wall. Marcus took his time. He looked around the room, made eye contact with everyone, including Brian. No anger in his eyes, just presence. "Some of you saw me this morning." A few people chuckled nervously. "Some, you didn't see me at all." The projector clicked. Slide 1, ownership, culture, dignity. "When I acquired this building, I didn't just buy square footage. I invested in something bigger. How people are treated before they flash a badge." The room went still. Marcus clicked again. Slide 2. Assumptions. "This morning, I walked in wearing jeans and a hoodie. Not a suit. Not a name badge. Not your idea of who runs things. And some people in this building decided that was all they needed to know about me." People shifted in their seats. Brian looked at the floor. Marcus paused, let the silence teach, then continued. "What you wear shouldn't determine what doors open for you. But this morning, I watched someone try to shut the door in my face, in a building I signed for last week." The slide changed again. A still image of the front desk security camera. Marcus, in his hoodie. Brian, with one hand raised, stopping him. Gasps, mouths parted. Marcus turned slowly toward the back of the room, looked Brian in the eye. "I'm not here to fire you." Brian's eyes snapped up, wide with confusion. Marcus continued, "I'm here to hold up a mirror. Silence, not a pin drop kind. A truth just landed kind." Marcus closed the laptop, stepped away from the podium. How we greet people matters. How we assume matters more. He let the weight of that settle. Then, calmly, "Let's move forward." As people stood, shook hands, filed out in stunned silence, Brian stayed back. He hadn't moved. Then he slowly walked up. "Mr. Ellis." "I didn't know." Marcus turned, looked him full in the face. "You didn't ask." And with that, he walked away, not because he wanted a reaction, but because he already had one. Music builds, sharp strings under slow, deep percussion, a beat of truth, quiet but undeniable. Voiceover whisper. He didn't need revenge, he needed the room to finally see him. Opening with the soft hum of fluorescent lights, a closed door clicking shut, and two men standing face to face. No crowd, no mic, just truth between them. Marcus sat in his office, blinds half open, phone silent, coffee cooling beside untouched. Emails. He'd been waiting, not for drama, not for applause, for accountability. A quiet knock. Come in. The door opened slowly. Brian stepped inside. Hat off, shoulders squared, but the confidence from earlier that morning? Gone. He stood there. For a second too long, then spoke. I figured I should come in and say something. I know you don't owe me your time. Marcus gestured to the chair across from him. You're right, I don't, but sit down anyway. Brian did, hands in his lap, eyes everywhere but straight ahead. Marcus let the silence stretch, then said, calmly, what were you going to say? Brian took a breath. I judged you, by your clothes, by your walk, by everything I thought I knew. He looked up now, and I was wrong. Marcus leaned back. Why do you think you did that? Brian blinked. I don't know. Habit. Upbringing. Bias I didn't even know was in me. Marcus nodded slowly. That's the problem. Most of the damage in this world doesn't come from people who mean harm. It comes from people who never stop to question how they see others. Brian looked ashamed. I embarrassed you. No, Marcus replied. You embarrassed yourself. And this building. A long pause. Then Marcus said, you've got two choices. Learn and change, or stay who you were, and step aside. Brian looked up. I'd like to stay, but I'll earn it this time. No shortcuts. Marcus stood, extended his hand. Then start by learning people's names, and not just the ones in suits. Brian shook it, firmly. The shake didn't fix the past, but it opened the door to a future that wasn't built on assumption. After he left, Marcus stared out the window, watched as Brian walked back to the front desk, a little slower, a little straighter, and for the first time, paying attention. Music builds, soft piano under slow strings, the sound of accountability choosing growth. Voiceover, whisper. He didn't want an apology. He wanted change, and sometimes, change starts with one uncomfortable conversation. Opening with the shuffle of printed documents, the sound of a coffee machine humming in the background, and a voice calmly rewriting the rules, not out of anger, but out of vision. 2 weeks passed. The building felt different, not louder, just more awake. Marcus had rolled out a new policy. The first 5 seconds matter. Mandatory bias training for all front-facing staff. Monthly anonymous culture feedback forms, rotational listening sessions, hosted by Marcus himself. Not a demo, not a poster, a movement. Brian was the first to attend every session, first to speak, first to admit. I didn't even know how much I wasn't seeing. Marcus didn't praise him. He let the work speak. Word spread beyond the building. Other property. Groups asked for copies of the new protocol. Industry newsletters did features on the owner who shows up in sneakers. One headline read, From Ignored to Icon, the quiet power of Marcus Ellis. But Marcus wasn't after press. He was after change that stayed when the cameras left. One morning, a new concierge employee arrived. Young, Latino, freshly trained. Introduced himself to every person who walked in, even the janitors, even the delivery drivers. Because that's what the new orientation taught him. We don't check clothing, we check our assumptions. Brian helped lead that orientation. He didn't just memorize Marcus's words, he embodied them. Meanwhile, inside the building, tenants started noticing, clients started noticing. The vibe was different, not perfect, but aware, and awareness was a revolution in itself. Upstairs, Marcus kept working, kept building. Blueprints for a second tower, meetings with a nonprofit to sponsor youth internships. One day, his assistant asked, Why do you still keep that hoodie on your coat rack? Marcus smiled. Because that hoodie changed everything. Music builds, grounded, thoughtful, quietly, triumphant. Voiceover whisper. They mocked his clothes, but now his values shaped every corner of the building, opening with the low hum of an early morning lobby, quiet footsteps across marble, and the voice of someone about to be judged, again. It was a Tuesday morning. Lobby was quiet. Brian was at the desk, sipping black coffee. He looked up, saw a young, black man step through the front doors. Maybe 22, twists in his hair, black hoodie, cargo pants, a beat-up laptop bag slung across his shoulder. He didn't walk in timid. He walked in like he belonged. Brian stood up, out of habit, but this time, not to question, to welcome. "Morning, sir, can I help you?" The young man looked surprised. I'm here to see Mr. Ellis. 10 a.m. meeting." Brian smiled. "Of course. Name?" "Darius Reed." Brian typed it in. "Appointment confirmed. Mr. Ellis will be right down. You're welcome to wait right over there." Darius paused, then said quietly, "I gotta admit, I thought I'd be stopped." Brian nodded. "You're not the first to think that, but we're working on making sure. You're the last." Upstairs, Marcus watched the interaction through the security feed. Not spying, just were observing, seeing the proof that culture does change when you lead it from the inside. He came down a few minutes later, met Darius in the lobby, handshake, smile. "You ready?" Darius nodded. More than ready. They headed up to the 15th floor. Brian watched them go, and for a moment, he saw his own mistake from months ago reflected in Darius's face. Only now, there was no sting, just growth. Back in the office, Marcus and Darius sat down. Interview started, but it wasn't just about skills, it was about alignment. Marcus asked, "Why do you want to work here?" Darius replied, "Because I want to be somewhere that doesn't ask me to shrink. I want to create, to build, not to fit into someone else's comfort zone." Marcus smiled. "Then you're in the right place." He offered him the job before the hour ended. Paid internship. Mentorship under the lead architect. Pathway to full-time. As Darius left the building, he looked back at Brian, gave him a respectful nod. Brian returned it. Two men, two pasts. One shared moment of understanding. Music swells, soft horns layered, with warm strings. The kind of melody that feels like healing. Voiceover whisper. One day they judged a man by what he wore. Now, they welcome the ones who look like him, because of him. Opening with keyboard clicks, markers scribbling on a whiteboard, and the soft sound of new voices finally being heard. Darius's first week at Ellis Holdings was different. No side glances, no tone shifting, no one questioning if he belonged in the room, because here everyone belonged. Marcus didn't hover, he didn't micromanage, but he did make time. Every Thursday morning he held an open door hour, no sign-ups, no approvals, just walk in and talk. Darius showed up first every time. They talked strategy, storytelling, architecture, design, even sneakers. One day Darius asked, "How'd you know this could even work?" Marcus leaned back. "I didn't, but I knew I couldn't keep knocking on doors that weren't made for me, so I built my own and left it unlocked." In week 3, Darius was invited to sit in on a pitch meeting. Big client, old money, mostly white. He almost said no, but Marcus stopped him in the hallway. "You bring your perspective, not their permission." The meeting, Darius spoke up, suggested a shift in language that better resonated with Gen Z. The room paused, then nodded. Smart insight. The client smiled. "This kid's good." Marcus smiled too. "He's not a kid. He's the future." That afternoon, Darius was offered a permanent strategist position, 2 months early. He called his mom from the stairwell. Cried. That night, he stayed late, working on a brand campaign. Marcus passed by, stopped in the doorway. "You're still here?" Didn't want to lose the momentum. Marcus nodded, then walked in, sat beside him. They worked quietly. 2 black men, different ages, same fire. After a while, Marcus said, "You know what the best part of this building is?" Darius looked. Up the view? Marcus grinned. No, that someone like you walked through the front door. And no one asked you why. Music builds, hopeful chords layered with rising strings, a sound of arrival, of impact, of legacy becoming motion, voiceover whisper. He once stood alone in the lobby. Now, the building moves with people who look like him and lead like him. Opening with email notifications, the buzz of office chatter and the sound of a name being whispered. Not in judgment this time, but in admiration. It was a Wednesday. Darius walked into work like usual, coffee in hand, head full of campaign ideas. On his desk sat a sleek black envelope. Inside, a letter from Grayline and Associates, one of the top firms in the city. Polished, prestigious, powerful. They were offering him a role, senior strategist, high salary, bigger accounts, corporate prestige. And the twist? They used to lease office, space in the Orion building, the same place where Marcus was once ignored. Darius didn't know that history yet, but when Marcus passed by and saw the logo, he paused, picked up the letter and smiled, the kind of smile that carries memories people think you've forgotten. Thinking about taking it? He asked. Darius shrugged. Honestly, it's tempting. It's everything I thought I wanted. Before I knew this was possible. Marcus nodded. Grayline's a great name, but names don't build legacy. People do. Darius looked conflicted. They said they want fresh perspective, that they've learned a lot this past year. Marcus laughed softly. Funny how quickly people learn when the cameras turn on. Later that day, Darius asked for a meeting, just the two of them. He walked into Marcus's office, held up the offer. You built something from nothing and gave me space to find myself in the process. But I need to know. Would you be disappointed if I left? Marcus leaned back, folded his hands. I'd only be disappointed if you left to be someone they want, instead of becoming everything you are. Darius was quiet, then said, Grayline never saw me until now. You saw me on day one. Marcus nodded. That's the difference between chasing the light and becoming it. The next morning, Darius declined the offer, stayed at Ellis Holdings, and got promoted a month later. But he didn't stay because of loyalty. He stayed because he had clarity. Clarity about who he was, what he was building, and where he was truly valued. Music rises, bold strings under warm brass, the sound of choosing impact over illusion. Voiceover whisper. He didn't choose the bigger name. He chose the place that saw him before anyone else did. Opening with the sound of a heavy door unlocking, soft jazz in the background, and footsteps that no longer hesitate when they enter the room. A few months had passed. Darius had settled in. No longer the intern, no longer the new kid. Now, he was the one people came to for clarity, for ideas, for leadership, Marcus noticed. Not just the output, but the way Darius held the room. He challenged ideas, respectfully, elevated others, intentionally, and never once apologized for being fully himself. One Friday morning, Marcus sent him a short text. Come up to 18, bring your notebook. Darius took the elevator up, 18th floor, an entire level under renovation, still bare, unfinished, full of potential. Marcus stood at the window, hands in his pockets. What do you see? Darius looked around. Honestly, a blank canvas. Marcus smiled. Good, because I'm giving it to you. Darius blinked. What? You're ready. This floor, this team, the next division, it's yours. Silence, then Darius asked, why me? Marcus didn't hesitate. Because when I look at you, I see the man I needed at your age. And now that man needs you to lead the next phase. Darius stepped forward, looked out the window, saw the city he once thought would never open. Stores, and realized now he was holding keys. Over the next 2 months, the 18th floor transformed, a creative incubator, A launchpad for talent that didn't fit the old molds. A space for risk-takers, storytellers, and underestimated minds. They called it the Rise Room, because that's what it was for. Rising. Marcus let Darius run with it. Didn't micromanage. Didn't overshadow, just supported from the side, from experience, from belief. And one day Darius walked into his old high school to speak. To students who looked like him, he said, "They used to tell us to dress for the job we want, but what they meant was, hide who you are. I don't do that anymore. And neither should you." Music builds. Slow, proud, glowing with purpose. The sound of transition, not retirement. Voiceover whisper. He once walked into a building to prove himself. Now, he's handing over the keys into those who never should have. Needed permission. Opening with soft morning light, polished floors, and the slow, warm hum of a place that used to judge, now transformed by what it learned. It had been a year. The lobby was still sleek, the marble still shined, but something was different. A young man walked through the doors. Hoodie, faded jeans. A portfolio clutched under one arm. He looked around, hesitant, paused at the front desk. Brian looked up, older now, wiser in the eyes. He smiled. "Can I help you?" The young man cleared his throat. "Yeah, I'm here for an interview, but I wasn't sure if I was in the right place. I've never been in a building like this." Brian stood, walked around the desk, extended his hand. "What's your name, son?" Chris Johnson." "Well, Chris, you're right where you're supposed to be." Chris looked surprised. "You sure?" Brian smiled again. "I used to think people had to look a certain way to belong here, until the man who owns this building walked in, dressed just like you." Chris raised an eyebrow. "Really?" Brian pointed to the far end of the lobby, where a wall plaque now hung. The Ellis Legacy Hall, built on what they overlooked. Next to it, a photo of Marcus in a hoodie, hands in pockets, smiling. Chris turned, speechless. Brian added, "Go on up. They're waiting for you in the Rise Room." As Chris stepped into the elevator, he looked back. "Are you the boss here?" Brian chuckled. "No, but I know him now, and I learned from him." Cut to Marcus standing by the 18th floor window looking down at the street below. Same hoodie on his coat rack, same calm in his eyes, different world beneath him. He watched the elevator number rise, smiled. Because now, the building was filled with people who once would have been stopped at the door, and the man who was once mocked was now a symbol they'd never forget. Final music swells, rich strings, hopeful piano, and a soft chime as the elevator doors open. Voiceover whisper. Closing line. They judged the hoodie, they missed the man, but now his story is built into the walls.